All right, guys, today we have science. We've talked some bit about animal classification, and in this, we're going to do a little bit more of that today. Not so much what kingdom, domain, phylum they belong to, but more about the specific different animal groups. We've done a little bit of this with mammals, reptiles, amphibians. We're going to talk about that again. We're going to go into some more detail and some other things as well. Some of this will be review, some of this will be brand new. So, we're talking about animals, and by the end of class today, you'll be able to answer these basic questions, or these essential questions. One, what are the basic needs of animals? And two, how are animals classified? Basically, how are they grouped, right? Because we know how they're classified to some extent. All right, just like plants, animals need food, water, space, shelter, and oxygen. Remember with plants it said gases, right? Here it's oxygen. All animals need oxygen. Doesn't matter what kind they are. Of course they need food. Some are herbivores, some are carnivores, some are omnivores. They eat all things. But all animals need food. They all need clean water. They all need space to grow. That space is different for different organisms, though. And they need shelter of some sort to protect themselves from the weather. So this answers our first essential question. What are the basic needs of animals? Food, water, space, shelter, oxygen. All right. The next thing is, what are the different kinds of animal groups? Well, we know about mammals and amphibians, and we're going to cover that. Here's a group we hadn't talked about before, and these are the arthropods. Well, this is where the insects come in. We didn't really classify them before, but arthropods are a major section of this. And if you notice something interesting about the arthropods is they're symmetrical. So their body, if you draw a line straight down them, each side is going to be symmetrical. Now I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, except that on this page at least, except that they have joints. So their legs are jointed, they can bend easily, and they have different body segments depending on what type of arthropod they are. So on this next slide, you're going to need to make sure you take some notes here. There's 5 different classes of arthropods, and this is what we're going to spend a little bit more time on today talking about. So the first kind, and this is important to take notes on, I'll highlight a couple of these. Insects. How are insects different from other arthropods? Well, first of all, insects have 3 body segments, and you probably learned some of this in other classes. But they have the head, the thorax, and the abdomen. And they have 3 pairs of legs. So since they're pairs, they have a total of 6 legs. And they have 2 antennae. So insects, what characterizes them, they have 3 body segments. They have 3 pairs of legs for a total of 6 legs. And they have 2 antennae. And you know, your ants, your bees, dragonflies, all those are your common insects. The next group are the arachnids. These are your spiders. A spider is an arthropod, and it's called an arachnid. A spider is not an insect because spiders are different. Spiders only have 2 body segments. They do not have antennas, and they have 8 legs, or 4 pairs of legs, you could say. So that's a way they're different from insects. They only have 2 body parts. Your big old spiders are your arachnids. The next group are the crustaceans. Now you go down to the ocean and you see lots of little crabs running around on the beach down behind Beihai Yuntian, and you see these things all over the place. Crustaceans live partly in water, partly on land, but I think most of the time they spend their time in water. Crustaceans also have 2 body segments. But unlike some of the other creatures we've just talked about, they have 5 pairs of legs. So they'd have a total of 10 legs. I think the claws probably would count as legs there. So they have 2 body segments, 5 pairs of legs, and 2 sets of antennae. So I guess that means they have 4 antennae total. So they're a little bit different there. So crabs, shrimp, lobsters, those are crustaceans. The next group is called the Chilopoda. And the Chilopoda would be things like centipedes. Centipedes It looks like, well, centa means 100. So it looks like they have 100 legs. So they have numerous body segments. So that's one way they're different from insects and arachnids and crustaceans. They have lots of body segments, and each segment has a pair of legs. So for each segment, there's a leg. So if you want to know how many legs something has, I guess you can just count up the number of segments. And some of them, like centipedes, the centipedes have poisonous fangs, so they can be poisonous too. I don't think they're going to hurt a human so much. I mean, some might be able to, but that's how they kill their prey. So centipedes are in the Chilopoda category. Similar to the Chilopoda, but different, is the Diplopodo. That's a hard one to say. Diplopoda. And the Diplopoda are different from the Chilopoda because the first 4 body segments have 1 pair of legs. And then the rest of the body segments have 2 pairs of legs. So that's an important distinction. These creatures tend to roll up in a ball when threatened, and they don't have fangs. So they're different that way. Chilopoda, the centipedes, they have 1 set of legs per segment. The Diplopoda, the first 4 segments have 1 pair of legs, and the rest have 2 pairs of legs. So that's the difference there. All right, so those are your different types of arthropods, and how they're classified. Then, of course, we have mammals. We've done a great deal about this. Mammals they have fur. They're warm-blooded. They produce milk and are vertebrates. Mammals all have backbones. So hooray for that. There are 3 types of mammal groups, though. So mammals are split into different groups as well. You have your monotremes. Monotremes lay eggs. So that would be your platypus, duckbill platypus, which is a picture of one here. Interesting, when they were first introduced to Europe, they thought they were fake, that someone had sewed bits and pieces of other animals together. Then you have marsupials, which have pouches to care for their young. So those are your kangaroos and I think possums, possibly. There's quite a few different marsupials out there. But the most common type that you'd think of is the kangaroo. Then you have what is called the placentals, which are all the other kind of mammals that give birth to live young. Notice this is how they take care or give birth. Monotremes lay eggs, marsupials have pouches, and placentals, it says, have a uterus and placenta. That basically means that the babies are born alive. So know those 3 different types of mammals, okay? Know how they're different. This is an important page to take notes on. All right, then we have our reptiles. And reptiles are vertebrates. They have a backbone. They have cold blood, which means they can't control their body temperature. They are dependent on the weather. They have scales, they lay eggs, and they have lungs. That's an important distinction. They have to breathe air. So even alligators and the crocodiles, they go underwater, but they have to breathe air. Come up for air. All right, we're not going to worry about the types of reptiles so much. They break them down into alligators and turtles and snakes and lizards and then Tutara. I'm not worried about that. You won't see a question on that. All right, birds. Birds are warm-blooded. They're vertebrates. Of course, they have backbones. They have feathers, scales on legs, so their legs are scaly, and then they lay eggs themselves. We knew this is just review here. So we don't need to know the parts of a bird. I don't think it's pretty evident, isn't it? Hey, look, there's a wing. Those are the bird parts. Amphibians are different than reptiles, if you remember. They're cold-blooded like reptiles. They're vertebrates like reptiles. They breathe through lungs and through skin, but if you remember when they were young, they had some gills. They had eggs, they lay eggs, and they go through metamorphosis. You say, what is metamorphosis? It's this. They start off as an egg, and they slowly grow. They have external gills, so here's the tadpole in the early stages. The tadpoles grow, and they morph into a frog. So they start with tails and gills, and they end with lungs and legs. So that's what is meant by the metamorphosis. It goes through stages or changes. And that's an important distinction to remember. The big distinction is They start life with gills and a tail. They end with lungs and legs. So that is how they are different from reptiles. These need water to start. Then we go to fish. These are all different varieties of fish. They're cold-blooded. They have bones or cartilage. So cartilage aren't bones. Your nose is cartilage. It's not a bone. Your ears are made out of cartilage. So it's a hard material, but it's fairly flexible too. Can you imagine if your nose was made out of bone? It'd be broken so often because we get hit there more than you think. Fish have gills, and some give birth to eggs, and some give birth to live young. That's an important distinction to make. Now there are different kinds of fish. You have the jawless fish, which tends to be your lamprey and eels. You have bony fish, so fish that have bones, and then you have your fish that are made out of cartilage. So sharks generally are made out of they have cartilage, and these fish have bones. I think this is a type of salmon here. So we're not going to worry so much about these distinctions either. There's jawless fish, bony fish, and fish with cartilage. All right, we're not going to do this. We're going to end there. Those are our different ways we classify animals.